Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last day of the conference and to this particular session, which is on the economics of nutrition security and nutrition-smart food security investments, rationale, approaches, and tools for development banks and government. This is going to be a really interesting discussion this morning, looking at really how do we help the rubber to hit the road, and what is in moving from policy to practice, and what is the role of the development banks and other partners in helping to facilitate that. So my name is Wendy Walker, and I am the Director of Social Development here, practice team at Asian Development Bank in the Human and Social Development sector team. And I'm really happy to be your moderator this morning for what I think is going to be a great session and discussion on new tools, new evidence, and new ways in which organizations are coming to this issue of nutrition security. So let me first just situate the session a little bit for you and talk about the imperative to make MDB investments nutrition smart to drive greater impact. And as we continue to address the complex and evolving challenges of partner governments in Asia, there's both a need and an opportunity to better incorporate nutrition in ADB and other MDB operations and policy dialogue, including food security, to increase the impact of ADB projects and lay the foundation for future prosperity. And I want to underline the differentiation between food and nutrition security. While they're closely linked, nutrition and food security are not one and the same. Rather, while food security, which has been the focus of many of the sessions here, focuses on increasing access to food access across all income quintiles, nutrition security focuses on ensuring access to the right nutrition at the right time, especially for those vulnerable populations with increased and time-sensitive nutrition needs. And these are mainly children under the age of 5, adolescents, and pregnant women. So improving nutrition is critical for poverty alleviation and human capital development. There's extensive evidence showing that securing adequate nutrition for these populations is critical to breaking both the intergenerational cycle of poverty and for increasing health and human capital over the longer term. As we will hear in this session, stalled progress towards nutrition targets translates into measurable costs to governments both now and in the future. And nutrition spending and programming must be understood not as a draw on limited resources, but as a critical investment in the future of health and productivity. So today, this session is going to focus on some of those tools, some of the experience across institutions, and then also bring to light a few of the examples here at ADB as well. And the session will explore the rationale for such investments and present new evidence, experiences, and pathways and tools for doing so, based on work with ADB's partner international financial institutions like African Development Bank and World Bank, as well as our client governments. The speakers today, several of them come from Nutrition International. I'm really happy to welcome Nutrition International here as an important knowledge partner for this session. They are a global nutrition organization that partners extensively with governments, MDBs, and other normative institutions to improve governance, financing, and programs for nutrition. We also have my esteemed colleague, Takeshi Ueda, who's a principal agricultural specialist here at ADB, and he's been leading many of the interesting innovations work in agriculture sector. We're going to hear how health economics tools can be leveraged to influence the agenda of nutrition with food systems, and as I also mentioned, hear the examples from the African Development Bank and other IFIs. Our teams are already exploring collaboration in national social safety net programs based on a study that Nutrition International has recently completed on nutrition-sensitive social protection in 12 countries, particularly in Southeast Asia. So I want to introduce our speakers for today, and then we'll go into the program and maybe do the 2 presentations first, and then invite everybody up to the table. So first for today, the first speaker will be Dr. Dylan Walters. Dylan is a health economist and a project director on health economics at Nutrition International. His work focuses on developing and leading the health economics research, evaluation, modeling, and policy projects related to maternal and child nutrition for the organization, and working with partners to advance the domain of nutrition through economic analysis. So thank you, Dylan. I invite you up to the stage for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Wendy. I appreciate the introduction and the opportunity today to speak to you about the economics of nutrition security. On Tuesday, there was a plenary session that I thought was a good starting point for today. And in one of the presentations, the gentleman highlighted that all of the investments into agricultural production made today and in the next few decades will result in substantial reductions in hunger, but leave major gaps in childhood undernutrition. So I think it reinforced why today we want to speak to you and present again the global investment case for investing in nutrition as part of the food security agenda. And also in the second part of my presentation, we'll highlight a few practical economic analyses tools that could be used by Asian Development Bank and partners, member countries, to advance investing in nutrition. So why investing in nutrition as part of food security matters? In 2012, World Health Assembly noticed the gravity of the situation of nutrition and established 6 global nutrition targets, as you may well know. Stunting, anemia in women, low birth weight, wasting, childhood obesity, and breastfeeding being suboptimal as well. Today, almost reaching the end line of those targets in 2025, very few of these countries are reaching the targets that were set out. So there's still a substantial need for reductions in malnutrition as outlined in 2012. More than the health and nutritional burden of these indicators, we estimate that the cost of nutrition in Asia alone has a substantial impact on mortality. Still, we estimate that there's nearly 500,000 preventable deaths each year in Asia alone linked to malnutrition. Furthermore, there's a substantial cognitive development and educational development limitation placed by malnutrition as well. And as we expect, the economic consequences of this health and human capital restriction due to malnutrition is substantial. We estimate that that nearly $1.5 trillion in productivity could be lost due to stunting up to 2030 alone. And there's an additional productivity loss due to anemia in women and children as well that is quite substantial. So these figures here are just a few figures to really highlight the health, human capital, and economic consequences that remain in Asia, let alone the rest of the world, due to malnutrition. A recent study came out, I just found recently, by Axier et al., that showed that the economic consequences stretch to the private sector as well. I thought this would be quite relevant for ADB and partners. And what was striking out of this paper was the estimate that each year there is approximately $65 billion lost in sales attributable to childhood stunting as well. So the economic consequences are not only borne by households or governments or the Ministry of Finance, but in companies and firms all around the world as well. And that adds up substantially. The good news out of all this is, since 2012 or even before that, as the amount of evidence on the interventions that are low cost, high impact solutions to reduce malnutrition has grown. We have interventions that are ready, many in the health system, but also agriculture, food system interventions, or WASH sector and social protection that are available and ready with substantial amount of evidence that can have an impact on malnutrition. So that is good news. And another element to consider is that sometimes interventions targeted at reducing undernutrition can have a double duty effect. a recent study by Nutrition International and in partnership with Harvard School of Public Health found a connection between scaling prenatal nutrition interventions and averting non-communicable diseases in the future. And in East Asia, East and Southeast Asia specifically, we estimate that scaling prenatal nutrition interventions could result in nearly 3 million cases averted of hypertension, 1 million cases averted of diabetes, and 30,000 NCD deaths could be delayed as well annually. So imagine the amount of health burden and the health system, efficiencies that could be gained and healthcare system costs that could be saved if all that NCD burden was alleviated through low-cost interventions directed for reducing malnutrition. That could be substantial as well. And in the nutrition field, we're fortunate that much of the economic analysis has consistently shown that reducing childhood malnutrition, but also maternal nutrition, adolescent nutrition, consistently show some of the highest return on investments. From the Copenhagen Consensus for the Sustainable Development Goals, it was among the top sectors that food security and nutrition could yield significant benefits compared to the costs. And even last year, Copenhagen Consensus released a new best investments for the SDGs thematic paper on nutrition, which highlighted interventions in maternal nutrition as the highest, having the highest cost-benefit ratios. So this is all part of what, in my mind, is a really convincing investment case for nutrition at the global level, and this is often replicated at the national level. And I think in the region of Asia, the case for investing in nutrition is even stronger today. Now, the second part of my presentation will really try to break down what are some analytical tools that could be used by ADB or member countries and partners to further that, taking that investment case from a global level investment case down to the practical level, pragmatic level for each project or investment cases, even at the subnational level, to convince policymakers, advocates, and donors that investing in nutrition is a good idea. Economics and analytical tools that, there's a growing amount of tools that are available right now can be used for assessing trends, determinants, and inequities, but also understanding the health and human capital consequences of inaction. Economic tools can also be used that are readily available to help users optimize their programs to achieve more allocative efficiency from their investments and demonstrate value for money to donors and governments as well. I'm going to highlight a few examples in this presentation of some analyses that we've completed that I think would be of interest to the audience. One of the pillars of economics is conducting costing, cost effectiveness, and cost benefit studies. And we've seen in the last few years great demand from governments, but also multilateral agencies for some targeted analytical studies that can fill gaps in the evidence and give some peace of mind to investors on whether taking that leap of faith into investing into nutrition is worthwhile. Particularly in the areas of large-scale food fortification. One example being last year, and I completed a cost-benefit analysis in Indonesia on wheat flour fortification as a request that was requested by the government of Indonesia to really demonstrate whether or not changing the standards for food fortification was a good decision for the government. Other types of economic analyses, I think in the social protection program, there's in the social protection sector, a really good example that I like is doing costing analysis of dietary diversification. A couple years ago, and I did micronutrient inadequacy analysis for SSMP programs in India, in several states, to assess what were the micronutrient needs and how, in an affordable way, under different budget constraints, we could diversify the diets given, or the food given in social protection programs to increase dietary diversity. There are many other examples of economic evaluations that could be conducted in a strategic way to give peace of mind to policymakers and investors. I'm thinking currently some of the hot topics in this area to continue studying are around sweet and sugar beverage taxation and economic evaluation in each country relevant to their context. I think there's great opportunities for ADB to be a leader in that area potentially, or even rice fortification. I have, with colleagues at UC Davis, and I has contributed to updating the chapter in the WHO food fortification guidelines on costs and economics of food fortification. And there's quite a scarcity of cost-benefit analyses on rice fortification. And we'd like to find ways of promoting more cost-benefit studies on rice fortification, because hypothetically it could be one of the greatest interventions for the Asia region, in my opinion. So those are a few examples I'd like to highlight. Another area of tools or analyses that we are trying to grow at NI is developing what I call simple tools. These are analytical tools that use open access data and an underlying economic model to generate really strategic data points on whether it's the health, human capital, and economic consequences of nutrition or undernutrition for governments around the world. We've developed 3 simple tools. The first was I developed on cost of not breastfeeding, which has data points for over 120 countries instantly and is updated based on data that we receive. The second was a MMS cost-benefit tool. That's multiple micronutrient supplementation that does a rapid cost-benefit analysis in over 33 countries for governments who are considering investing in MMS, which is another hot topic intervention right now. But governments are cautious because it may not be affordable. But that tool can be used in that analysis. And our newest tool that we hope to release in 2024 is the Cost of Inaction tool on stunting, anemia, and low birth weight. And this tool is used to generate some of the estimates I presented in the first half of my presentation on the health, human capital, and economic consequences of stunting, anemia, and low birth weight. And the idea for this tool is that sometimes, the right data at the right time in the hands of the right policymaker can be really powerful and influential. And but there's not always time to do detailed damage assessment reports or detailed cost-benefited analyses. And so this tool generates estimates for a global level, regional level, national level for over 120 countries and the cost of inaction. And we'd like to find ways of it being useful to ADB and member countries and partners to advance investment case for nutrition at the project level, subnational level, and country level as well. It has, as you can see, this is an example in the Philippines where we have a cost of stunting and anemia in the Philippines generates data at the national level. And we also have the capability that we're testing right now to do what-if scenario analysis, which generates estimates for the potential of health and human capital economic gains if an investment, a project, or a national strategy reaches a certain target for that form of malnutrition. This can be used, this cost of inaction tool and other tools are, could be useful data for investment cases. These are, obviously we've seen the global investment case for nutrition from the World Bank in 2017, and many national level investment cases being conducted as well. We've also taken on subnational level investment cases as part of domestic resource mobilization programs, and we try to develop a methodology to do these investment cases rapidly, down from amount of time being 6 months to a year, down to a couple weeks for each investment case, to help governors or policymakers at the subnational level have the same data points to help justify allocation of resources towards nutrition. And these can be very, very powerful in my opinion. Costed nutrition action plans can be done on a geographic basis, an issue basis, or sector basis as well as multiple sectors. And sometimes we get feedback saying they're one of the most powerful tools at a policymaker's disposal to justify investment, but often has to go hand in hand with advocacy. One area of analysis using economics that I'd like to see more of, but is the optimization analysis. Often investment cases make some grand assumptions, and in the rush of planning, there's limited time to try to optimize the investments for particular health or nutritional outcomes. But there are easy to use tools that are available to help governments or advocates and researchers to understand the differential in impact if we optimize for certain health or nutritional outcomes. There's some cases where this has been used in World Bank studies and in our county level investment cases, but I think it's a great opportunity to not only promote spending more on nutrition, but using what we have, the funding we have for nutrition more efficiently. From this conference, I've seen many opportunities for ADB and partners to use economic analyses and tools to promote investing in nutrition. And I think there's certainly more inside your minds that we can draw out. I think the ADB would be a phenomenal institution for building capacity in the Asia region, in the strategic use of data and economic tools for nutrition financing, and ADB probably has the capability of finding incentivization mechanisms, whether they're financial or non-financial, for promoting demand for nutrition investments as well. This would be also a phenomenal setting for ADB to take leadership of certain research topics that are really relevant for the Asia region, whether it's rice fortification, SSB taxation, dietary diversification, and SSMPs. Those are a few opportunities from where I sit that I see. So in summary, I think the investing in nutrition security matters, and it should be well integrated into the food security agenda. It's a great opportunity to have not only an effect on hunger, but malnutrition as well. And there are incredible amount of easy to use analytical tools and also methodologies that can be useful to assist ADB and member countries to advance their investment cases in nutrition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan, for that excellent overview and description of set of new tools, and also optimistic view on what is really possible by trying to connect the dots and between evidence and available data, policy discussions, and actual movement in terms of programming and policy development on the ground. So with that, that's the first presentation. Second presentation is from Sergio Teixeira. I hope I got that right. He's the director of NTEAM, the N team at Nutrition International. Sergio, just a second, has had a dual-track career in international development with a focus on multi-stakeholder platforms, capacity development, and nutrition, and 10 plus years in business as a management consultant and entrepreneur. He's a part of the Nutrition International team, and the title that he will be talking about now is Experiences in Building Nutrition-Smart Investments with the MDBs, Examples from the African Development Bank and the World Bank Group. So over to you, Sergio. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It's great to be with you all today. So my name is Sergio Teixeira, and I'm the Director of Nutrition International's Technical Assistance Mechanism, and I'm joining you today from Geneva in Switzerland. So Dylan has pointed out some of the economic arguments for investing in nutrition, and he's also showed us some of the tools that NI has developed to calculate both the amounts sometimes needed to invest, but also the potential returns from those investments. And I think we can call that the why, if you will. My presentation will briefly touch upon the how, and more specifically, the approach that the African Development Bank has taken to scale up its investments in nutrition, and some of the support that Nutrition International has provided to them to help them with that. Next slide, please. So in summary, the African Development Bank has been implementing its MNAP, its Multi-Sectoral Nutrition Action Plan, since 2018. And it's doing that to make its own contribution to the African Union's goal of reducing stunting by 40%. And it's great to know, to see that they've been able to now amass a portfolio of $2.8 billion in nutrition smart investing. So to really oversimplify things, development banks can support nutrition both financially and technically. And when it comes to those investments, to the financial support, I think that the simplest way to think about it is that funding can flow into nutrition smart projects in key sectors, and I'll speak about that in a little bit, or they can flow into large-scale multi-sectoral nutrition programs. And we'll see an example of such a program from Ethiopia towards the end of my presentation. And then, of course, we've seen at the bank that, at the African Development Bank, that country governments also ask for technical support, and that technical support can include analysis of development strategies, help identifying project opportunities, and of course support for project design. But today I'll focus mostly on the investment and financial side of things. And I'll talk a little bit about a suite of guidance and tools that we've developed for the African Development Bank, which help them in designing nutrition smart projects, and also some of the capacity development work that we've done at the African Development Bank. Next slide, please. So the simplest way, I think, to think about nutrition smart programming is to think about them as projects that achieve their intended sector goals while integrating nutrition. So these projects continue to keep their primary goal in place, such as improving access to sanitation, or increasing school enrollment, or increasing agricultural production or exports. But at the same time, simultaneously, they achieve also a nutrition outcome. And this might be the most important aspect of the nutrition smart approach that I want to highlight, because it means that a significant portion of the Development Bank's pipeline of projects can be adjusted to make a contribution to nutrition outcomes. And this is different from imagining that a bank needs to launch large-scale nutrition projects if it wants to make a difference in nutrition. Instead of that, a bank can think about just tweaking and adjusting the design of its portfolio to also make a contribution to nutrition. And naturally, of course, we'll find projects that can be adjusted to make a contribution to nutrition, mostly in the sectors of health, agriculture, wash, social protection, and resilience or fragility. There are other sectors that can make a contribution as well, of course, but those are the sectors with the highest potential to contribute. And the principal design features that make a project nutrition smart and that mean that it can contribute to nutrition outcome are, first of all, to make sure that nutrition has been incorporated into the goals of the project and into its monitoring system. to make sure that the project also includes activities that address either the immediate or underlying causes of malnutrition, to make sure that vulnerable beneficiaries are targeted by the project, and then, of course, if possible, we can also include nutrition-specific interventions in the project. Next slide, please. So that logic can then translate into a system called the nutrition marker. And we helped the African Development Bank develop a nutrition marker. And that marker classifies projects at the bank as either nutrition smart or not nutrition smart. So the bank adopted a system that has only two categories for projects. There are other systems, for example, the OECD nutrition policy marker is similar to this one, but it classifies projects into high contribution to nutrition, intermediate contribution to nutrition, or no contribution to nutrition. They went with a three-tier system, but the African Development Bank chose a two-tier system. And so the nutrition marker looks at projects from three different perspectives to come to a conclusion as to whether they're nutrition smart or not. So first of all, at either the project impact or project outcome formulation should include nutrition, should mention nutrition, and should address nutrition. So if either the impact or outcome statements for the project address nutrition, then that means the project can be nutrition smart. At the second tier, so at the indicator level, either impact indicators or outcome indicators should include nutrition. And if one of those two are true, it can also be considered nutrition smart. And finally, the third tier is around activities. And if the project includes evidence-based activities, interventions that address malnutrition, that address either the immediate or the underlying causes of malnutrition, then the project can be considered nutrition smart. And so if those three conditions come together, where the impact or outcome formulation include nutrition, if the impact or outcome indicators include nutrition, and if the activities include evidence-based nutrition-relevant interventions, then the project is classified as nutrition smart. And of course, this is super helpful because it means that the African Development Bank, teams and units can classify their projects themselves, so they can have an early idea of how well they're doing on nutrition smart programming and what to adjust to make a project nutrition smart. But it also means that the African Development Bank's M&E system can synthesize project data and produce regular reports around the level of nutrition smart investment, about nutrition-related outcomes as well. And it can do that by country, by region, by sector, etc. Next slide, please. So essentially, the African Development Bank has undertaken a change management process over the last 6 years. And so with funding from Big Win Philanthropy and from Aliko Dangote Foundation, we've helped the African Development Bank along that road, along that change management process. And essentially, it meant developing the bank's capacity on two fronts. So first of all, developing guidance that staff can use. Basically, we developed guidance at three levels. At one level, guidance that supports situation analysis, so that nutrition can be highlighted as a priority in country strategy papers, which I think at the Asian Development Bank you call country partnership strategies. Secondly, guidance that identifies entry points along the phases of a project cycle where integration of nutrition needs to take place. And finally, we developed sector-specific guidance that identifies the specific nutrition actions that can be included in a project, recommends beneficiaries that can be targeted, and recommends the indicators to include in the project. So project design guidance. But change is much more than just guidance and tools. It's mostly about changing people. So we've spent quite a bit of time working with African Development Bank senior leadership in making sure that they then articulate how nutrition is a priority, and the bank leadership is very visible on the topic of nutrition. So they regularly update staff on the bank's progress in nutrition, and they regularly remind staff of the fact that nutrition is a priority at the bank. The bank also has invested in continuous training, so workshops, training events, and online learning tools. And of course, a lot of regular internal communication, like I said, around progress, around what's working, what isn't working, and course adjustments. Next slide, please. So just to focus in on one element of that guidance. Today, like I said, we're only touching upon all this work. So, and all this work is, of course, available online, so we can share those links, etc. But to delve into just one piece of one element of that guidance, the guidance that applies to the agriculture sector includes probable pathways by which specific agricultural interventions can contribute to nutrition outcomes. And it uses the framework of the causal framework for malnutrition to do that. So essentially, a review has been conducted of interventions in the agriculture space to identify the ones for which the best evidence exists for having an impact on malnutrition. And so those sector interventions are highlighted there on the left of the causal framework. And the guidance then explains how those interventions through various different linkages and pathways end up making contribution to better nutritional status, whether through care or better health or better food and nutrition security through one of the pathways that lead to better nutrition. But apart from just selecting the right activities or the right interventions, the guidance also highlights other considerations that enhance that nutrition outcome. For example, other complementary project components that have to be included, as well as how best to target those interventions. Next slide, please. So in summary, the African Development Bank has made quite strong progress in increasing its level of nutrition smart investing. So from a baseline of around $0.7 billion allocated to nutrition smart projects in the period 2015 to 2018, that level of investing increased to $2.1 billion in the period 2019 to 2021. So the bank's portfolio by early 2022 had already reached $2.8 billion, and we have, and we know informally that the level of investment has continued to increase. And it's important to note the growth was registered across all the targeted sectors, so health, agriculture, wash, and social protection. Probably most relevant for the conference at which we're at is to show that in agriculture, the allocation of the percentage of projects that were nutrition smart, the percentage of funds invested in agriculture projects that were nutrition smart increased from 12% to 39%, which is fantastic. So as I outlined earlier, in addition to this nutrition smart approach and nutrition smart projects, the Development Bank, of course, can also support multi-sectoral nutrition projects whose intended primary impact is explicitly nutrition, a different approach from investing in nutrition smart projects. So, and we wanted to share with you one example today of such a project that the African Development Bank has supported, which is their support to Ethiopia's Security Declaration. So the AFDB's multi-sectoral approach for stunting reduction project has granted $31 million to Ethiopia for around a 5-year period. And that complements a similar amount already invested by the government of Ethiopia. And the following video will provide an overview of that project and its midterm review. Next slide, and if you can play the video, please.
In 2015, the government of Ethiopia made a bold and innovative high-level declaration to end stunting in children under 2 by 2030. This high-level commitment, known as the Sakota Declaration, or SD, operationalized through a multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder program involving 14 sector ministries. The Sakota Declaration builds on and supports the implementation of the National Food and Nutrition Policy and Strategy. The 15-year roadmap is divided into 3 phases. These are the innovation phase, expansion phase, and scale-up phase. The innovation phase focused on the implementation of priority high-impact intervention packages that demonstrated 3% annual average stunting reduction rate and generated wide range of learning and evidence informing the expansion phase. The expansion phase was started with 240 weredas and is based on the Sakota Declaration roadmap and the proven impact demonstrated in preventing stunting. The government has now approved expansion to additional weredas, making it possible to reach out to a total of 700 vulnerable weredas by 2025. The national scale-up phase, which will extend from 2026 to 2030, involves full-blown implementation of evidence-based multi-sectoral interventions. Addressing the complex challenges of stunting, especially in areas like the Sakota Declaration, requires an innovative approach and concerted efforts of all relevant stakeholders. Understanding the situation, the federal government of Ethiopia, represented by the Ministry of Health, and in collaboration with the Ministries of Agriculture, Water Irrigation and Energy, Education, Women, Children and Social Affairs, with Africa Development Bank, have jointly designed a 4-year nutrition-focused project called the Multi-Sectoral Approach for Stunting Reduction Project, or MASREP. MASREP is designed to contribute to the realization of the Sakota Declaration, or SD, commitment through implementation of a package of nutrition-specific, nutrition-sensitive, and climate and nutrition-smart infrastructure development projects in the 40 SD Innovation Phase weredas of Amhara and Tigray regions.
Indeed, the African Development Bank appreciates and fully supports Ethiopia's bold vision of eradicating the underlying causes of chronic undernutrition and ending stunting among children under 2 years by 2030, as underscored in the Sakota Declaration.
MASREP is a 4-year project financed by Africa Development Bank with a total cost of UA 34.17 million, or 48.17 million USD. The project is being closely coordinated with interventions of other development partners in the project area. The overall objective of the project is to increase access to multi-sectoral nutrition services for children under 5 years in the Sakota Declaration areas, focusing on nutrition-specific, nutrition-sensitive, and infrastructure development interventions. The projects envisage the outcomes of improved access to services for health among children under 5 years and PLWs, increased production and consumption of diverse and nutritious food, and improved knowledge, attitude, and practices on feeding, care, and hygiene. The project has 4 components. These are Component 1, Climate-Proofed Infrastructure Development for Effective Service Delivery. Component 2, Livelihood Support, Production, and Promotion of Nutritious Foods. Component 3, Strengthening Institutional Systems and Capacity Building. Component 4, Project Coordination and Management. Among the 40 target weredas of the SD program, the project implemented the full package of multi-sectoral interventions in the prioritized 17 weredas, that is 9 in Amhara and 8 in Tigray regions, while the remaining 23 weredas benefit from partial package that consists of SBCC and system strengthening activities to complement government's multi-sectoral interventions. 1. Health sector. To improve health services, health posts have been constructed with packages of water supply, solar power, and sex disaggregated latrines, and have commenced providing quality health and nutrition services to the targeted community. Various capacity building trainings have been provided to health workers, religious leaders, community leaders, and frontline workers in nutrition and SBCC. These initiatives aim to enhance social and behavior change among the target communities, especially fostering the consumption of nutritious and diversified foods. 2. Irrigation sector. To increase the production and consumption of diverse and nutritious foods and enhance access to water supply for agricultural production, small-scale irrigation projects have been constructed. As a result, households have gained access to cultivated diverse and nutritious dense crops, fruits, and vegetables. 3. Agriculture sector. To improve agricultural and household practices and diet diversification, nutrition demonstration corners have been constructed at farmers' training centers, and pregnant and lactating women were equipped with wash and energy-saving stoves. This initiative encourages households to participate in cooking demonstrations and attend nutrition training sessions, promoting the production and consumption of diverse and nutritious foods. To attain this, the project conducted livelihood support, focusing on fisheries, dairy goats and poultry production, and chicken farming targeting pregnant and lactating women, or PLWs. This assistance aims to boost the production and consumption of nutritious foods within households, such as eggs and milk. Additionally, any surplus can be sold to generate household income and savings, providing mothers with opportunities for sustainable economic activities and to utilize the savings to replace the chicken when they no longer provide eggs after 2 years. Various capacity building training sessions have been carried out for farmers, agriculture experts, and women managing backyard gardens of vegetables and fruits. Several community seed multiplication centers have been established, along with the provision of farm tools to support pregnant and lactating women with children less than 2 years. The livelihood provisions are supported with regular technical follow-up from agricultural health extension workers. 4. Water sector. In an effort to improve access to safe and clean water, various water supply projects have been constructed. Numerous households and institutions, including health centers, schools, and various government entities, have benefited from these water supply projects. Capacity building training sessions have been offered to members of the Water Sanitation and Hygiene Committee, or WASHCO, and water user groups, aiming to enhance their knowledge and skills in order to manage the schemes in a sustainable manner. 5. Education sector. To enhance primary education access and service quality, different model nutrition schools aimed at providing students with homegrown school feeding packages are being constructed. Capacity building trainings were conducted for school health and nutrition club members and teachers, as well as mini media clubs. Schools are also furnished with mini media equipment to enhance their communication capabilities. Farm tools and seeds of different vegetables are provided to target schools, and the schools have commenced the implementation of school gardening, cultivating vegetables and fruits, and are witnessing tangible benefits for the students. 6. Women and Social Affairs sector. The project is gender responsive, and the direct beneficiaries of the project are children under 5 years old, pregnant and lactating women, and adolescent girls. Most project interventions are geared towards benefiting women, children, and adolescent girls. Men were also involved during the project activity implementation. During reporting, the project tracks the proportion of women-headed households.
Investing in nutrition, therefore, builds human capital, creates opportunities to develop a healthy workforce, extends life expectancy, and lifetime productivity. The first 1,000 days of a child's life are extremely crucial to building their brains, what I call gray matter infrastructure. We can repair a road, no big deal. We can redo a rail or port. If it's not working, no big deal. But we cannot repair the brain of a human and the cognitive capacity that's lost once it's lost due to severe malnutrition.
The government of Ethiopia appreciates the exemplar partnership and commitment made by the African Development Bank to finance the Sakota Declaration and is working together to take the lessons learned to the continental level.
Yep, thanks. So I know it was a little bit of a long video, but I thought it was worthwhile because it does illustrate sort of the breadth and depth of what a multi-sectoral nutrition project can include, and also I think just the level of ambition that's possible, with those projects. So just to touch on some lessons learned. So we've been on this journey with the African Development Bank now for 6 years, and obviously there's a lot of lessons, but I thought I'd extract just 3 or 4 here for everyone. So some around design and some around fostering client and internal demand. So around design, we've learned that it's really important to maximize impact, that we really prioritize the highest burden countries and the highest potential sectors. The nutrition smart approach is not always easy. It has its challenges, and it's just not worthwhile taking on every project in every sector. It's just important to prioritize, and therefore it's important to have a sort of a set of criteria, a logic for that prioritization. Secondly, we've learned that to celebrate success, but also to ensure focus, it's important to monitor nutrition outputs and outcomes, not just investments. And so we're now helping the bank move towards that by strengthening their M&E system for nutrition smart projects to also capture things like number of beneficiaries, and even trying to go as far as rolling up the total impact on nutrition across all the projects. And finally, make sure that the expert capacity is available at the right time during the project cycle to support project leads to design those nutrition smart projects. And then on the client and internal demand front, I think it's important to set targets to encourage sectors and project teams and to monitor progress. It's important to big upstream, like we said. I think what you call your country partnership strategies, to make sure that nutrition is included in those from the get-go. And finally, it's important to take an economic lens all the time, right? And that's what Dylan spoke to today. Prepare economic assessments of the cost of our nutrition, and then estimate the returns from investing in nutrition. And when it comes to demand, I know that my colleague Manoj, our regional director, is going to touch a little bit more upon that, specifically in Asia. So I'll wrap up there. And that was just, like I said, a brief overview of what it's taken for the African Development Bank to really get into the nutrition smart approach. And of course, happy to share more at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sergio. That was an excellent overview of not only the idea that a focus on nutrition security is a key glue and essential for ensuring development outcomes of different sectoral interventions, but by working both on some of the key infrastructure and business process at the African Development Bank, and then linking to the African Union's goal, but also the Sakota Declaration specifically in Ethiopia, and the power of that all-of-government plan allows really that new type of programming. This incredibly looks like very impactful, complex, but also impactful in pulling the capabilities from across the different sectors together to make long-term and impacts across the life cycle. So with that, I'd like to turn now to our next speaker, which is my colleague Takeshi Ueda from the agriculture sector, to talk about some of the challenges of including nutrition-sensitive programming, or nutrition security programming, within the agricultural sector here. Thank you.
Good morning. Hi. This is Takeshi Ueda, Principal Natural Resource and Agriculture Economist. I'm also like economist. Yeah, first I want to just emphasize investment in human capital is really important. And I mean, graduate study program when I was a student, like more than 20 years ago, it's already, famous scholars like Gary Becker or Theodore Schultz, they're talking about how important is investment in human capital. Productivity increase. We can increase input, for instance, for agriculture water, and we can increase agriculture chemicals or seeds or different things. But important thing is, this no increase of output resulted from increase of inputs. Like 10 labor produce so much agriculture produce, but 10 labor can turn into doubling the output if these 10 laborers are smarter and physically stronger. So that's really nutrition. And this, we said, this residual, other than increase of inputs, which reflected into output increase, total factor productivity, that comes from investment in human capital and innovations. Innovations come from human capital. So it's really important to invest in human capital. That's first. And it has huge positive impact fiscally by promoting nutritious food, like children, not only children, but also adults. We munching on unhealthy food, and it can cost for the government insurance, and so it's huge fiscal impact if we get nutrition right. So it's not only human capital, but at the same time, fiscal impact. I just want to talk about, as Asian Development Bank staff, challenges that we are facing in order to bring nutrition in our operations. To be frank, we are a little behind from the African Development Bank. So I hope this will be the kind of opportunity that we can reconsider our operations and bring somehow nutrition into our operation. First challenge is government structure and government agenda. We, agriculture sector, work with Ministry of Agriculture, and their focus is food security. Actually, food security includes nutrition, utilization of food. However, always centered on production and making sure enough cereal, staple, to be provided. That's major part. Then now, urbanization goes, and non-agriculture, wage increases. Then government try to help farmers to increase their income to, match with the non-agriculture sector wage. Otherwise, all farmers go away. So next, in addition to this staple food production, now they are trying to help them to grow cash crops, which may be something nutritious, or maybe something totally different from nutrition. So those are the kind of major agendas of Ministry of Agriculture and basically food production side. And so this nutrition is not in their long-term strategy. So we really have to work somehow, because government has option to import food. Like look at Singapore. They don't produce, but they can provide very good nutrition. So, government can do without producing. They have to make a decision whether they import or they produce. Either way, if right policy is there, they should be able to, supply enough nutritious food for the, people. But challenge is, it's really this government agenda and also government structure So most nutrition conscious ministries are usually Ministry of Health and Ministry of Education or Ministry of, So those ministries are much more conscious about nutrition security, which is different from Ministry of Agriculture. We have to somehow get them to marry, and we need right structure for them to probably very highest, government commitment is required in order to make it happen. But that's tough part. So it's really, I consider this, good example showing Africa. I think we can learn a lot, and with, partner with such as, Nutrition International, because ADB, do we have a nutrition specialist? One. Sorry. Oh, yes. Yeah, we only have one with big team. So, again, even human capacity of Asian Development Bank, we have to consider something. And the other thing is, working with producers and consumers. From the government point of view, it's much easier to work with producers. And producers are much stronger to influence government. Looking at the lobbyist, all producers, they can do something, but consumers as mass, it's quite difficult to influence and get them to one voice. It's quite tough. So that's another challenge, because we have to really move consumers. But if we are able to move consumers, it's going to be big impact. It's the entire population. So that's another challenge I see. The other is, again, Ministry of Agriculture. Their challenge is increasing day by day because of climate change. The other is degraded natural resources. Agriculture, we deprive soil nutrient, we deprive water in order to feed us, right? We have much better way of producing food. But, so far, our way of producing is really extensive, intensive, depriving good part of natural resources. That's how we feed ourselves. That's how we, make farming system. So we really have to look at more holistically, like agri-food system. The other is unhealthy food driven by food companies are much more affordable than, healthy food. So that's another challenge that we face. We really have to possibly work with those food companies as well, and to create some win-win situation. Otherwise, if you go to market in the Philippines, processed food much cheaper than fresh foods, fresh, products. Government can make them affordable, healthy food, through trade or through production. Right. So that's another. Do I have a little more time? Or, okay. Okay, 2 minutes, okay. So, so with those challenges, I just want to make 2 points. ADB's operation. First, as Wendy just mentioned about, we have gone through significant institutional reform. We put all the technical sector groups together in order for us to be able to work better. So multi-sector solutions. We are better to be able to provide now than before. So that's one thing. The other thing is, so especially human and social development, team and agri team, we can definitely work together and, cater for effective solutions with nutrition aspect embedded. The other point is, although agriculture sector, we mainly work on, production. We are now looking at more value chain. So we are not only working with farmers, but we are also working with processors and even retailers. So we can definitely have multiple entry points where we can embed nutrition. For instance, fortification it comes from rice millers or processors, and eventually this educational aspect or these things can be done on the side of more like consumer utilization. So we are looking much more holistically in terms of this agriculture operation. So with this, I just finish, and I'm looking forward to discussion further. Thank you.
So now we can have a bit of discussion, and I'll open it up to the floor in just a minute. But I was asked to make a few key takeaways, and I don't think you need me to repeat what we've just heard. It's really been very exciting. But what is clear, I mean, the message is very loud and clear from this session, that there are many levers, many entry points, that clear evidence on what works and impact of action is possible, and it's important to tap into some of these new tools to take it forward. And also an importance of the focus, both in government, with the kind of strategic planning and clarity of focus on the issue and looking at opportunity across the sectors, as well as the importance of pushing development partners, and particularly the development banks, to rethink how we approach this, to increase its visibility on the screen. And we have a great opportunity here with our big food security initiative to place a strong focus on nutrition security within that. Secondly, some of the key things that Sergio talked about changing the business process and using our business process to develop that focus, but also the glue across the different sectors that we work in. And finally, the big challenge also is something that I asked Manoj yesterday. What is the big picture move in this region that is really going to help to focus things? Sergio talked about the goal of the African Union and the ability then of the African Development Bank to use that as a focus central piece, and I'm sure it must play a big role in helping to develop that momentum. But one of my questions is really what's happening in this region, and where will we find that going forward? I also was asked to talk a little bit from my perspective, from the Human and Social Development team, what are some of the opportunities going forward? So we cover health, education, and social protection, and just to raise a few of those, increasingly in the social protection area, we've been focusing on cash plus interventions, so the regular social assistance plus a range of other capabilities and assets around that. I see great opportunity, obviously, for developing nutrition-sensitive programming around that, both in terms of awareness building, but also linked to some of the interventions that are happening now, like food voucher program here in Philippines, for example. There's also a new set of programming that's beginning to emerge in the health sector and with the education sector, really looking on early child development. This is something that's new for us. It's coming partly being pushed on the care economy side, but partly also with a very strong focus on what are the human capital gains from those types of interventions, and this is clearly an area. And thirdly, I was really interested by what you said in terms of that study on NCDs, because I think that provokes us to think across the entire life cycle and the long-term impacts. And given the importance of that agenda here in this region and and its multi-sectoral focus that we will be taking in terms of NCDs, I see that as a really big opportunity. But finally, post-COVID, in terms of social protection systems, it's clear that coverage and financing for social protection is not sufficient, and as many countries in the region are trying to both strengthen their systems and focus and deal with some of the issues around inadequate financing still, I think two key areas are both in terms of evidence and helping to refocus some of the programming that's actually happening as one of the key system strengthening issues. And secondly, something very important that you raised in terms of the discussions on domestic resource mobilization, the opportunities by reassessing things like subsidies, the impacts on things like food fortification choices, etc., could make a big difference to some of those bigger picture discussions that don't necessarily happen specifically only in the social protection sector, but really are one of those multi-sectoral interventions. So with that, a few looking at opportunities across us, and I haven't mentioned the kinds of strengthening that we need to do, as Takeshi was saying, between across our sectors, and particularly in human and social development and the agricultural natural resources. But I'd like to switch over to you, Manoj, for a few minutes to just talk about the recent study that you've done in South Asia, looking at the sort of nutrition security, I guess, preparedness of social protection systems in the region, and anything else you'd like to bring to the discussion.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Wendy, and thanks other speakers. It's been very informative, very helpful. So maybe just to introduce myself, my name is Manoj. I'm Asia Regional Director of Nutrition International. Where we come from at Nutrition International, we believe that good nutrition is a foundation for good health, and not only good health, but also economic productivity and development of any country. And in the sessions of Dylan and Sergio, you could see very clear linkages. I tend to be more optimistic that we would be able to take forward nutrition to integrate in different government program, national programs, but also development banks programs. We do see a number of entry points in Asia region on how nutrition can be integrated in different national programs to bring much bigger nutrition impact. So recently we did a study, well, maybe before the study, I wanted to say one of the entry points that we see is integrating nutrition in social protection and safety net programs across Asia. We recently did a study on understanding social protection and safety net programs across Asia. We collected evidences from 12 different countries, and it has certainly highlighted a number of opportunities, a number of the government's willingness also to integrate nutrition in social protection programs. We do have a number of evidences already in Asia region. To talk about in India, Nutrition International is working with a number of state governments to integrate nutrition in public distribution system. That's the world's largest social protection program. Only in 2 states, Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat, where we introduced fortified rice in public distribution system, and it's reaching to 100 million people. And that's quite significant. But also we have evidences that shows that how introducing fortified rice with the vitamin B12 and iron and folic acid is leading to reduction of anemia in the targeted population. We also see the other opportunity in Indonesia. So in Indonesia, we worked with the government of Indonesia to make a mandatory legislation on wheat flour fortification. And that reached to 165 million people with the fortified wheat flour. And again, it's very, very significant scale, and we do have evidences of how these interventions makes a difference at the lower level. We've been working with another big social protection initiative in Pakistan. It's a Benazir Income Support Program, where we are working with them to integrate adolescent nutrition in BISP program to make it more adolescent nutrition friendly program. In Bangladesh, we have been working with the 8 line ministries on a multi-sectoral initiative. And again, Sergio was talking about example from Ethiopia, but we do have in this region where 8 different ministries came together to do a joint planning, joint budgeting, very coordinated implementation, and joint monitoring at districts and Upjila level. And that's a very, very encouraging example of how multi-sectoral nutrition can be taken forward and it can make a difference. I'll stop there, Wendy. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Manoj. We have about 10 minutes left in the session, so I'd like to open up first to the audience if you have any questions, and please go ahead and come up to the mic that's in the center.
Thanks, Wendy. This is a brilliant session. And I think Sergio deserves a round of applause for, I think it's 4 a.m. in Geneva. Thanks for joining us so early.
Thanks, Sergio.
I'm a professor at Penn State University of Nutrition and Behavioral Health. And Sergio, I have one question for you that's real quick, and then one question for Dylan, I believe. But the question for Sergio is nutrition smart programming just a different word for nutrition sensitive programming? And if not, what's that distinction when we talk to government stakeholders? And for Dylan, in your models, I've been working with specialized nutritious foods for about 15 years now, and there are just so many behavioral constraints associated with them, especially MNP and MMS is very similar, and I worry that MMS will have the same fate as IFA, low coverage, low uptake, and utilization. Do your models, the MMS cost benefit tool, take those into consideration? Thanks.
Maybe over to you first, Sergio.
Sure. So the answer is both yes and no. So to some extent, yes. A nutrition smart intervention, if we were to apply it to an intervention, would probably be a nutrition sensitive intervention. But the African Development Bank decided to use the term nutrition smart to talk about more than an intervention, but an approach. So it's an approach that involves both. So a nutrition smart project, for example, could include a combination of nutrition smart, nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive interventions, as well as other design features. So I think nutrition smart is broader than nutrition sensitive, but could include nutrition sensitive as one of the interventions that are included in a particular project. So I think nutrition smart is an approach. And it includes those design features, right? So selection of interventions, which might be specific or sensitive, but also questions around targeting, questions around monitoring, among others. So it's a bit broader.
Thank you. And Dylan?
Thank you for the question. I can speak to the MMS cost benefit research and model. Your point is well taken on it's not as simple as just switching a commodity from IFA to MMS. If we try to scale up the commodity without supporting that transition, strengthening health systems, as well as figuring out some adherence solutions, there will be no returns yielded from that scale up of just the commodity. As you probably know, the WHO has cautiously recommended MMS to be undertaken in the context of implementation research. And so in some countries, I think particularly we're working in Pakistan and Nigeria first, Nutrition International, working directly with government, on a policy, on the policy enabling environment, financing, adherence solutions, and system strengthening aspects of MMS scale up. A few things that we're considering in the model itself that we have online. The effect sizes are based on systematic reviews, based on randomized controlled trials that summarize the effect size for MMS compared to iron folic acid. So that's just the base model. But then we do account for a need to invest in that transition from one to the other. We're doing costing analysis that to figure out what would be the cost that we need to invest in addition to the commodity to ensure that implementation of MMS is done well. Everything from training of healthcare workers, policy guidelines, monitoring, research, quality assurance for MMS as well. In addition to not only the transition that you need to invest in, we're undertaking research right now on, I think, with, I can't remember the name of the partner, but experts in human-centered design to come up with what we call adherence solutions. IFA has always, has a lower requirement for the number of tablets that pregnant women must take. MMS, the requirement is even higher. So we can expect there to be even more barriers to adherence. But we're in the process right now of coming up with, some adherence solutions, whether it's through social behavior change or other means. It's kind of a secondary intervention to ensure that adherence is, there's a higher adherence than there was for IFA, and also to understand what the cost of that intervention is as well. We hope to include those in our economic models because the cost of transition and adherence is important, but in all scenarios of our economic model, even with some assumptions on those costs, it's still a cost-effective intervention. So, but great question.
Thank you. Other questions? Please, I think the lady in purple first. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Kasturi Mukhopadhyay. I'm an independent consultant, and a fantastic presentation, a lot of learning. But there are a few things that are coming to my mind that are of concern, and I want to present it to this esteemed gathering. First thing, food should have two qualities. It should be safe and it should be nutritious, it should be nurturing to be called as a food in the first place. So while nutritional enhancement is an absolute need today, as soil has been degraded due to many reasons, including industrial agriculture, rampant chemical use, etc. So if the nutrition is not in the soil, it's not in our food. So nutrition does not only mean macro or micronutrient, but also microbes, soil microbes. They play a big role in nutrition to the plants and also to in our gut system, our gut microbiome. So here also it is, if it is not in the soil, it's not in our food, and it's not in our gut. So though food fortification supplementation is an absolute requirement right at this moment, it is only a short-term band-aid solution. The real long-term solution lies below our feet in regenerating soil health, increasing soil microbial diversity and organic content. Secondly, many highly processed food are laden with harmful chemicals as additives, stabilizers, flavor or taste enhancer, and not to mention the non-level GM food residues, which might be laden with toxic Bt or glyphosate residues, many of which have already been declared as carcinogens and have many other health issues. So it's important to define what is a food and what is not, even though they smell better, taste better, are more accessible and cheap, as you mentioned. So if we are not considering a patient healed is a patient customer lost approach, which we are not, then we need to channelize our fund to this long-term solution. Till then, enhancing nutritional component of harvested food is an absolute requirement. But if you don't do this in the long run, this acute crisis can become a chronic crisis.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that that's a question to anybody on the panel about the importance of not just looking at the food fortification, but also soil regeneration. If I can just ask the last question to come forward, we're almost at 10:30, then you can try to answer both. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Again, I come here representing the local government of Quezon City. So our perspective is with that, please put that into consideration. For one, we are in the last mile of the value chain. And my question to Dylan is that we're very much committed to food security. We have a program which is promoting that. But again, are the tools available even down to a local government level? That's one. Second is that to address the food security crisis, we have a food security program where we promoted urban gardening. Okay, and in terms of iron tablets, our ability to comply with what's recommended, we're not able to. And yet, the question in urban gardening is that, is it sustainable? And right now, the income there is that, no, it cannot replace minimum wage. However, we don't have the capacity of measuring the impact on that with health and nutrition. So we're promoting leafy greens, dark leafy greens, and we know in theories that it contributes to the nutrition impact. However, our government does not yet have the capacity. Would your groups be able to assist us with regard to, if we're really going to invest, what is the return? Because that is the question. Is it sustainable? Is urban farming sustainable? So that's it. Our city is relatively big to the other cities of the Philippines. However, we want to invest, but we need the guidance of how much of our local revenue should we invest in nutrition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, test of the capacity of the tools, Dylan. And I don't know, Manoj, maybe you want to take the first one.
Sure. I'll try to answer your question. You touched on a number of aspects of nutrition, including climate change and sustainability. I would say answer certainly lies, and we do support long-term solutions. And you rightly said that food fortification could be short-term, intermediary solution, but longer-term solutions should come from people. And to that end, we do have a very well-thought social behavior change communications program, very much embedded as part of our nutrition initiative across the world. We're also looking at how do we bring in some of the scientific nudging for nutrition to help people to move from awareness level to make the right choices in terms of what kind of food they will consume. That's number one. Number two, I will also say when we look at a food system as a whole, we're also looking at how we would promote sustainable agriculture that prioritizes soil health, etc., but also it leads to production of more nutrient-dense food. So certainly that's one of the things we do support and prioritize. I hope I answered your question. Thanks.
And briefly, can I just ask you first, what is the population of Quezon City?
We're about 3 million to 4 million when the transients, the workers, the students.
Wow. Okay, thank you for the context. I'm fairly new here, but that is bigger than most Canadian provinces where I come from. So I think there's a justification for us investing in our tools to bring them applicable to local government units. At the moment, the simple tools that we have are directed at national level, regional, and global. But one of the reasons we're also here in the Philippines at this forum is we are in the process of starting a new project with the National Nutrition Council and on advocacy using economics and data and to support the investment case for nutrition in the Philippines. So I'd be happy to take your contact information, and if through that project we can make the argument to translate our tools down to local government unit level or provincial level, we'd be happy to share what we can. Thanks.
Great, thank you very much. So we're at time, and I really want to thank everybody for attending this session, which I think was very fascinating and useful and a great addition to this forum. And thank very much Nutrition International and my colleague Kazuko, who is the only nutritionist at ADB, for putting together this informative session. And let's hope that for the next one we can build on this. Thank you very much. Thank you, all the speakers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.